Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, 7th National Assembly winds up as Senate and House of Representatives hold valedictory sessions. After years of debates and consideration, the House of Representatives finally passes the Petroleum Industry Bill. Federal government promises to tackle corruption in Nigeria's extractive industry, ensures the country's proactive participation in OPEC's affairs. And fire at a petrol station in Ghana's capital Accra kills almost 100 people.
And on business news tonight, a new research by the Bank of America Merrill Lynch suggests President Buhari's priority will be oil sector reforms and fighting corruption in the sector.
Alan Sports News, Nigeria's Super Eagles move up in the latest ranking of football nations by FIFA.
We begin tonight in Abuja, the nation's federal capital territory, where after 4 years of making laws for the country, members of the upper legislative chamber have bid farewell to the nation. The Senate held a valedictory session to mark the end of the 7th Assembly, and at the session, federal lawmakers in the upper chamber spoke on the achievements of the 7th Assembly and the lessons learned. Our correspondent Linda Akigbe reports.
After 4 years of lawmaking, oversight in the executive, and intervening in national issues, the 7th National Assembly has officially come to an end. Now, within the last 4 years, the Senate introduced 591 bills, out of which 123 were passed. In the final moments of the 7th Senate, federal lawmakers looked at the accomplishments of the 7th Assembly and also set the agenda for the 8th Assembly.
1467.
Inside the Senate chamber, federal lawmakers were joined by some prominent former lawmakers who came to take part in the valedictory session. For many lawmakers, this is the last time they would be sitting in this chamber. The Senate leader kicked the ball rolling, speaking on some of the achievements of the 7th Assembly.
This distinguished Senate is further invited to note that within the same period, a total of 115 motions were considered with resolutions approved.
The floor was thrown open as lawmakers reminisced on the experiences in the last 4 years and the lessons learned.
In spite of the difficult political and economic climate within which we worked, and despite our internal challenges, we can end this Senate convinced that we represented our constituents and Nigerians with the most noble of intentions and to the best of our abilities.
We have never had any crisis. We work as a family. We work as a group that are looking for the progress of this country. And I believe whoever happened to be part of this Senate, part of the 7th Senate, will be proud to be a Nigerian, will be proud to be a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Despite the achievements of the 7th Senate, the upper chamber did not get around to enacting one critical law which Nigerians expected they would, the Petroleum Industry Bill, PIB. The bill was immersed in controversies and lawmakers could not resolve the grey areas in the bill.
As far as I'm concerned, it's one of the biggest, regrets I have, as somebody from the South, is the non-passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill. But, minority will always have, a say. Majority will always have their way.
The Senate did not also attend to reports of some critical investigations, namely the report on the probe of the immigration recruitment tragedy, the report on investigation into the management of fuel subsidy, as well as investigation on the mystery of the dead bodies found in Ezu River in Anambra State, the Malabo oil field transaction probe, an investigation of the management of funds in Nigeria's embassies and foreign missions. No explanation has been given on why the reports were not considered, despite months of investigations. All this belong to the realm of history, and it is left to the incoming 8th Assembly to resurrect these reports, do justice to them, and learn from the mistakes of the 7th Assembly. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Well, let's take you live now to our Abuja studios, where our correspondent Linda Akigbe is standing by with Senator Ita-Enang. Linda.
Thank you, Ijoma. Now with me in the studio is the Chairman, Senate Committee on Rules and Business, Senator Ita-Enang. You're welcome to the news at 10.
Thank you very much.
Now today the Senate held a valedictory session to mark the end of the 7th Senate. Are you satisfied with the way the Senate has conducted its activities in the last 4 years?
I'm perfectly satisfied, first with the leadership of Senator David Mark as President of the Senate and Chairman of the National Assembly, and satisfied with the Senate President and all the senators in the manner we have conducted our legislative business. First, according to the Constitution. Second, according to the rules and standing orders. Third, according to international parliamentary conventions, practices, and usages. And third and finally, in accordance with the Nigerian political expediency.
Now, what makes you satisfied, considering that yesterday we saw that the Senate, 24 hours to the expiration of the 7th Assembly, passed 46 bills, 1/3 of the total bills it was supposed to pass in the last 4 years? Why did it wait to the last few moments of the 7th Assembly to do this?
This is what I call the parliamentary expediency, because the bills were passed in accordance with the rules and the standing orders of the Senate and the House of Representatives, in accordance with the powers of the legislature under the Constitution. The Constitution says that we should pass bills, consider bills and pass. The Constitution entitles us to make our own rules. And the rules we make under Order 1, Rule 2, entitles us that where there is no procedure for doing a thing, or where we are constrained by the rules or any of the practices we set in our standing orders, we can apply to suspend the order. Now, we have our Order 89, Rule 1, 2, 3, and all that, which says that each bill must receive first, second, and third readings. Now, this relates to bills either originating from the House or originating from the Senate. The public may not know that these bills are bills that were passed or that were considered, received first, second, and third reading in the House of Representatives, were passed. Most of them had public hearings in which the Senate participated in the public hearing. In a few of them, those that the Senate may have ordered that we participate in the public hearings, and they were duly passed and transmitted to the House. They were transmitted a year ago, some less than a year ago, some a little over a year ago, and they were made available to all the senators. Secondly, in every bill that is considered by the House and the Senate, it is gazetted in the National Assembly Journal. And it is the same bill, it is the same journal that gazettes and publishes the bills of the House that it publishes the bills of the Senate. So all these bills were made available to the distinguished senators. And even that, before that yesterday, before all the bills, the 46 of them, in fact there were more because there were those that we had issues, they were distributed to all the senators. Now, what the Rules and Business agreed to do is, since we do not have enough time that each of these bills will do a first reading, just read the titles. Each of these will do a second reading, just do the debate of general principles. Or we do what we call consideration in committee of whole. Let it be deemed that each of these bills, having been introduced on the floor of the House of Representatives and transmitted and passed and transmitted to the Senate, and having been introduced on the floor of the Senate, made available to all the senators, that we should now adopt a special procedure. And that special procedure required one. The first application I made to the House, to the floor, to the Senate, was that we suspend our Order 89, which requires first, second, and third reading on different days, to make sure that to make it that the bill would be deemed to be read first, second, and third time.
But couldn't this have been done? The Senate has had 4 years. Couldn't this have been spread
this
over
is time what we call
to allow lawmakers
legislative expediency? You remember that most of these bills have been appearing on the order paper. Senators have been having them. Sometimes, because of the number of things that we have to do, when we get to some time of considering some of these bills, it will be said that, well, the legislative time available to the Senate on that day has passed, and we apply to adjourn them to the next legislative days. Now, we did all we had to do for all the periods. We considered constitutional amendments, we considered other bills, we screened ministers and ambassadors and statutory appointees, constitutional appointees, and so on. So we didn't have enough time. And in parliamentary practice, when you run into a hitch of time, you are entitled to use your rules to abridge the time. Even the court normally sometimes abridge the time for doing a thing, and sometimes it extends the time for doing a thing. And so under our rules, we could abridge the time, and we abridged the time, and we considered it and did it. And again, there is this principle of legislative reciprocity, which means that, well, the House of Representatives, you have a problem with time. We've sent you about 14 bills which they adopted today. You've sent us 46 bills, about 46 bills, which we passed. We do not have the time, and you do not have the time. If you adopt, having read our bills, our own, we will adopt your own. And so we agreed with that with the House. And so they agreed to adopt, and we agreed to adopt, using the same procedure.
Okay, now, Senator, let's quickly go to the issue of the Petroleum Industry Bill. At the end of the day, the Senate did not pass the Petroleum Industry Bill in the 7th Assembly. Why was it so difficult for the Senate to pass the PIB?
Well, you pass a bill when you have committed it to a committee, and that committee has submitted its report. We committed the bill to the joint committee, 4 committees, Committee on Petroleum Upstream headed by Senator Polka, Petroleum Downstream headed by Senator Magnus Abe, the Gas headed by Senator Nkechi Nwogu, and the Judiciary Committee.
So why was the PIB not passed in the Senate?
The committee did not submit its report to the Senate. The report was not laid on the table.
So what becomes of the fate of the PIB? The House of Reps passed the PIB today, so what happens to the PIB?
Well, I'm afraid that under the Constitution, the PIB has lapsed. Petroleum Industry Bill has lapsed. Because even if the Senate passed it today, and there was a difference in version, it has lapsed because there was no time to concur and harmonize. Although the House of Representatives has passed, it has not transmitted to the Senate. And the Senate has not passed. So it stands, it lapses.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Senator Itana, for coming on the News at 10.
Thank you very much.
Now back to you, Joma.
Thanks a lot, Linda Akigbe, speaking with the Chairman, Senate Committee on Rules and Business, Senator Ita Enang. In part 2, after the break, 16 Benue state lawmakers elected on the PDP platform flee, alleging threats to their lives. That's in a moment. Do join us again.